Welcome into the Inside Scoop. We are live from Nashville, Tennessee. Today is Sunday, April 20th, and I am your host, Josh Newberg. We're 5 days into the spring portal weekend, so lots of portal talk on today's show. We have the great Pete Nakos gracing us with his presence as he's coming off a week of earth-shattering reports. We'll talk also USC recruiting, EJ Holland from the Wolverines. We're going to talk Michigan. We'll also hit on Georgia. And as always, our portal info brought to you by Teamworks Intelligence. Every player, every metric, every advantage. All right, we got a big show. Let's get to it. We got another busy weekend of college football recruiting, and we're here to talk about the biggest developments that went down. But before we get started, guys, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. All right, let's get into it. We got another former five-star in the portal. Just a few months after five-star quarterback Jackson Arnold put his name in the portal, Oklahoma is losing another five-star recruit after appearing in 13 games as a freshman and recording 6 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack. He's gone. Well, maybe. We're talking about David Stone, the former defensive lineman, is in the portal, but rumors have been swirling that he's still in contact with Oklahoma about a possible comeback. Remember, Stone was a 5-star recruit out of Oklahoma City, but played his high school ball at IMG Academy down in Florida. He was the number 9 ranked recruit in America, not just at his position, in the entire country, and that recruitment was a long one, but eventually they signed him. He's been in Norman for a year. They spent a lot of time recruiting him, a lot of resources, a lot of money was involved in his recruitment to Oklahoma, only for that investment to go belly up in just one season. It's crazy, but that's just the way the transfer portal's been bouncing lately. And remember his recruitment? It was Michigan State. It was Miami and Oklahoma. Those were the finalists. It was a really tough decision. He was sitting down there on the field with his family. I remember that moment. It was on national television. And he ends up committing to Oklahoma. But will he be back at Oklahoma for a second year? And really, is he worth it? David Stone had 6 more career tackles than I have had at Oklahoma. And this year, he's asking for more. Well, we assume that he wants more money. I shouldn't say that. We don't know exactly what's happening. But there is word that negotiations could bring him back to Norman, or he could end up somewhere else. Oklahoma fans, how do you guys feel about this? Is it time to cut bait? Or should they preserve the investment that they've already made in a former top 10 player overall? You guys let me know. All right, Michigan. The Michigan game attracts big names. Number 4 ranked quarterback Kerry Adams was on campus. Quarterback Brady Smeagol, he was on campus. That was important because Derek Zammit, their other quarterback target, committed to Washington over the weekend. On 300 cornerback Dorian Barney was there. And so was running back Javian Osborne. And that's the name I want to focus on because Javian Osborne, we felt, heck, he said it on this channel that Notre Dame led coming into this trip to Michigan, and he's going to make a decision in 2 weeks. So was it enough? Did Michigan overcome Notre Dame? We're going to have 2 weeks to find out what's going to happen with Javian Osborne. But this weekend was a huge visit for Michigan. USC, they're trending for more. The number 4 ranked linebacker in the country is now trending to USC. Now, this one's not done. Oregon and BYU are heavily involved with the 4-star from Hawaii. I'm talking about Talanoa Ili. The 4-star linebacker from Hawaii is getting predictions for USC. WeAreSC insider Scott Schrader dropped his. On3 national analyst Steve Wiltfong is predicting him to go to USC, but as of now, there's no commitment date set. But right now, the Trojans are in the driver's seat of this recruitment. All right. It was a big week for quarterback commitments. We got a couple off the board over the weekend. 4-stars Derek Zammit, he committed to Washington. Jet Thamala, he committed to Iowa State. 4-star Gavin Sidwar to Missouri. Now, those are the commitments, but this sets the table for some major recruiting battles. We got 5-star Ryder Lyons still on the board. On 300 quarterback Brady Smeagol. And, of course, number 1 quarterback overall, Jared Curtis. He's going to make his decision on May 5th. Who's going to be wearing those celebratory sombreros? Will it be Oregon fans or will it be Georgia fans? We're going to be talking quarterback dominoes this week, but right now it is setting up for some major battles. And I think a majority of these will probably conclude either before summer begins on June 1st or shortly after that. So what do you guys think about the QB dominoes, and where are these top quarterbacks going? Talk to me. Comment section below. We got to talk transfer portal. I got On3 transfer portal expert Pete Nakos here. But before we get into it, transfer portal talk is brought to you by Teamworks Intelligence. Every player, every metric, every advantage. All right, Pete, let's talk David Stone. This one surprised me. We got a former 5-star who signed with Oklahoma in the portal after just 1 year. First of all, what broke down, and is it truly over between Oklahoma and David Stone?
Yeah, this is he officially went in Friday night, and it really came as a stunner. It was about almost 8:30 Central Time when he went in, 9:30 Eastern. And talking to people at Oklahoma over the weekend, I'm not going to say it's over with Oklahoma until he actually goes somewhere else and signs some papers somewhere else, just because I think he has a really good relationship there with Brent Venables and Todd Bates. And it sounds like he wants to be there. Just some things might not be adding up off the field, that it might be best for him to go somewhere else. So that's what's playing out there. I know Sooner Scoop, George Story put together a really good story Saturday morning, kind of laying out what went wrong there and why he is looking elsewhere at this point. So I think one school you have to watch here is Miami. They almost landed him coming out of high school, and they're in the need for a defensive tackle, and David Stone would be a great fit. But I also think that where the market is at right now too. I don't think Miami's going to overpay for him either. So you get that at Miami, and then you also have Ohio State, which is a top 5 program that definitely needs a defensive tackle. Last I've heard, they're making the decision if they want to go after David Stone or not.
All right. Michigan State, they were the other program. It was Michigan State, it was Miami, and Oklahoma. Is Michigan State a factor here?
Yeah, I think Michigan State was a big factor in his recruitment because of Mel Tucker. Obviously Mel Tucker isn't there anymore, so don't expect the Spartans to be a big factor at this point.
All right, David Stone. We'll see what happens there. Let's talk about another former 5-star. That's Nico Imaliava. There's word coming out right now that UCLA is informing their quarterback room that Nico's coming. What does that mean to you? And also, what does it mean to Joey Aguilar, who just transferred in from App State?
Yeah, it's funny, Josh. We just talked about a guy whose recruitment I'm not going to say is over until he signs anything, and I'm saying the same thing about Nico. I mean, we have known this has been trending to UCLA since the Tennessee and him decided to part ways. Steve Wiltfine has been reporting that the whole time. I still think UCLA is going to get it done. Obviously, telling your quarterbacks is a step in the right direction, but the ink still has to hit the paper. And when that does, obviously, he'll be a Bruin. What's that mean for Joey Aguilar, though? From everything I've been told, he's had a really good spring. Him and Tino Sinceri, the offensive coordinator, have really hit it off. The former Indiana quarterbacks coach who went to UCLA. Yeah. Those two have meshed so well. I'm very interested to see how this plays out. There's obviously a couple programs across the country though where Joey could maybe start next year, and how's that going to work out with Nico and Joey? And does Joey choose to stay and try to beat Nico up for the starting job?
Yeah, just an absolutely crazy situation going on there. We'll see what happens. Nico and UCLA continue to inch closer and closer to getting this done, but as of Sunday at about midday as we tape this, it's not officially over just yet. Let's talk about another former 5-star in the transfer portal. That's wide receiver Micah Hudson. He left Texas Tech. He went to A&M. Now he's back in the portal. Did he really join the A&M program, or did he just announce his transfer? What happened there? This year's spring transfer portal window is sponsored by Teamworks Intelligence, and their mission is simple: more hits, fewer misses, and player evaluation. In the transfer portal era, data-driven recruiting isn't just an advantage, it's essential. And Teamworks Intelligence empowers your program to navigate the transfer portal with precision while simultaneously elevating your game planning and self-scouting capabilities. The same advanced analytics platform trusted by NFL teams to make multi-million-dollar personnel decisions is now available to elevate your college program's evaluation process. For athletic directors, general managers, and coaching staffs, Teamwork Intelligence delivers game-changing efficiency by streamlining the evaluation process. Instead of spending countless hours reviewing film, traveling to scout prospects, your team can assess more players with greater accuracy in even less time. This means maximizing recruiting efforts within the new budget constraints, giving you the competitive edge needed to build championship caliber programs. Don't just survive the portal era, dominate it with Teamwork's Intelligence, the new standard in player evaluation.
I wouldn't say I would say he fully joined, but it was a very short a period of time that he was part of that program in College Station. He was one of the top transfers in this winter after leaving Texas Tech, and going to A&M made a lot of sense where he could play with Marcel Reed and be a big impact for that wide receiver room. And early on in winter workouts, it just didn't work out, and he kind of left the program, and that happened. And then this week, he officially went in the portal. We had reported when he had left the program that it wasn't gonna, they weren't gonna reconcile. So it's no surprise to see him back in the portal. The biggest surprise is that at this moment, like Texas Tech and Micah Hudson back to Texas Tech is not a done deal, right. And he visited Utah this weekend, and the Red Raiders are definitely going to really consider bringing him back in, but that is not as much of a foregone conclusion as we would have thought when he went in the portal.
So during his recruitment, I mean, when he committed, even before he committed to Texas Tech, he really didn't take many visits. Like during that cycle, he never even stepped foot at Texas or Texas A&M. He was pretty much just locked into Texas Tech. I always thought, hey, once the season starts, he's going to show up on a couple campuses. He never did, and his recruitment now kind of feels the same way. Do you see anybody besides Utah and Texas Tech getting involved here?
No, and I think Texas Tech, they really want to slot wide receiver this upcoming year. They're trying to like kick on a few doors for some other wide receivers in the portal. If that all doesn't work out, I know Micah Hudson will be a good fit, and maybe isn't that slot role they want, but obviously it would be a good fit.
All right. I know you got to run and break some news, but there's two more names I got to talk about. They're buzzing. Bo Atkinson, the edge prospect leaving UNC, was at Georgia this weekend, but I know Ohio State is also heavily involved. Does this recruitment get beyond this weekend after he was in Athens?
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be in Columbus on Monday, but the one thing I keep hearing is he really wants to make a decision this upcoming week. I don't know if we're going to see him get to a second weekend of visits.
Okay, cool. So that recruitment, though, and most likely we probably won't see a third team get involved here, probably just these two.
So it's interesting. So he had a bunch of Zoom calls this past week, like South Carolina, like they talked to him. That was a good call from what I heard. So I don't want to say that he's not going to take other visits, and there's definitely other schools in the mix, but the first two are definitely Georgia and Ohio State.
All right, one more name. We got BYU wide receiver, very productive wide receiver at BYU, Keelan Marion. What's the latest on his recruitment now that he's in the portal?
Yeah, so he's picked up a lot of offers since he was went in, SMU, Miami, Tennessee. I see Miami being a big factor here. They really want to add to that wide receiver room. And then beyond that, Texas is in the market for a return specialist. I don't know if it's all going to work out where he lands there, but I know Texas is definitely another team in this mix.
All right, we are officially halfway through the spring portal window. We're 5 days in. There's 5 days left. Pete Nakos with On3. Thanks for joining us. It's going to be another busy week in the portal.
You bet. Thanks, Josh.
Let's talk some Michigan Wolverine recruiting. There was a big spring game, but first we are going to talk transfer portal. And as always, transfer portal talk. It's brought to you by Teamwork's Intelligence. Every player, every metric, every advantage. Talk Michigan recruiting. There was a big spring game in Ann Arbor, but I got EJ Holland here from the Wolverine. We got to talk portal. The portal's been open for about 5 days. EJ, what has Michigan accomplished so far, and who are some names Michigan fans need to be watching as we keep on moving through this portal window?
Yeah, this week will be really interesting. I mean, obviously it's a short window, so you only have 5 more days to figure out if you're going to jump in the portal, if you are a potential portal player. The spring window closes on the 25th, so not a lot of time for guys to hop in the portal. I think this week will be especially crucial for Michigan as well. They haven't had a ton of movement at real priority positions. They did get a couple of commits. They landed a punter, Luke Bauer out of Mizzou. They did get a third running back in CJ Hester, who committed from UMass. So remember, the Wolverines added a transfer during the winter window in Justice Haynes. They also have Jordan Marshall, much touted recruit on the roster as well. That's expected to be your 1-2 punch, but CJ Hester adds some depth with Ben Hall leaving via the portal a few days ago. So those are the two they've added, not really highlight real names or not real priority positions. I think if you look over at the Wolverine message board, everybody's asking, where's the premier left tackle? Where's the wide receiver? Those are the two big priority positions that everybody can see. Look, Michigan needs help. The wide receiver room wasn't very productive last year. Now you have Bryce Underwood. Get him a big time weapon. You look at last year's offensive line production, it was not up to par. Especially at the University of Michigan, coming off back-to-back Joe Moore awards. They had a big dip in the way the offensive line performed. Michigan invested a lot, just in coaching. They got Grant Newsome some help with NFL veteran Juan Castillo. Sharon Moore still personally involved in the offensive line. But look, you still need the talent up front. So it'll be interesting to see who they really target there. Some guys have already come off the board. You saw Joe Cotton commit to Cincinnati, who was arguably Michigan's top offensive tackle target, but not a lot of big names in the portal right now at tackle or wide receiver. So again, we're monitoring the portal, seeing who enters, and then there's still quarterback, right? Mikey Keene, Michigan's winter transfer portal addition at the quarterback position from Fresno State, did not participate in spring ball, was not present at the spring game, or at least not playing in the spring game. So I think he's a guy that we're still tracking to see if he's going to be healthy enough to compete for the starting job with Bryce Underwood, or at least be a viable backup, because I think all signs point to Underwood starting at this point. But, they still need some depth. I mean, they only had two healthy quarterbacks during spring practice, Bryce Underwood and Jaden Davis. And I mean, Bryce has been fantastic, but he's still a true freshman, right? Mm-hmm. And if something happens to Bryce, you still need a guy behind him. And you'd also like a veteran there to push him, be able to give him advice. And that was supposed to be Keene. Keene hasn't been practicing, right? So Jaden Davis, if I'm a Michigan fan, I'm not really comfortable with Jaden Davis being quarterback too. He didn't play at all last year. He didn't really have a great outing at the spring game, threw for less than 100 yards and a couple of interceptions. So, Brendan Sullivan, who is transferring from Iowa, remains an option. Pete Nakos, our On3 transfer portal insider, one of the best in the business, reported that Michigan has interest. He's a guy that I think I mentioned when I came on the show not too long ago that Michigan could take a look at going into the spring transfer portal window. So it looks like they're doing that. It'll be interesting to see if they get him on campus. He's a legacy. He's a veteran guy. He could fill the role that Mikey Keene was supposed to fill. So a lot of question marks for Michigan heading into this week of the spring window when the transfer portal is set to close.
All right, let's talk a little bit about one of the biggest names from the high school level that was on campus over the weekend. And there was a bunch more names. You guys head over to the Wolverine for full coverage of the recruiting angle of Michigan spring game. But I want to talk about running back Javian Osborne because he's going to make his decision on May 3rd, and it's going to come down to Notre Dame and Michigan. We all thought heading into this visit that Notre Dame had a slight lead over the Wolverines. But, EJ, did Michigan make up ground this weekend?
I'm still gathering more information. I haven't heard anything that's led me to change my pick from Notre Dame to Michigan. It's kind of the same thing with Steve Wilfong. Steve was able to catch up with the family while they were still on campus and going through meetings. And he even posted on our board today, still digging. I'm in the same space as Steve right now. I'm still digging on this recruitment because it really just comes down to business. And we said that when we talked about him last time. Javian Osborne loves Tony Alford, Michigan's running backs coach. He loves the offense and the running back production. He loves the scheme. He loves new offensive coordinator Chip Lindsey and the way he's bringing a balanced attack to Ann Arbor. He, just fits in with what Michigan has to offer off the field as well. But Michigan hasn't really talked exact numbers with him. They've given their NIL pitch in general, but they haven't given him those exact numbers like Notre Dame has. Notre Dame has been very aggressive in doing that this cycle. And also, it's like I said, the last time we talked about Osborne, there are a lot of teams that are doing that. Michigan's just opting to wait it out, see how the court rulings play out. There's still Savion Hyder, who's their, maybe their top overall guy this cycle, 5-star running back still on the board. You have rev share coming in. So they're just taking a really measured approach with talking exact numbers with recruits. I don't know if that changed this weekend. That's something, me and Wilfong are digging to figure out. But if Michigan still did not talk exact numbers, and I haven't heard that yet, seems like it's pretty much a lock for Notre Dame, but we still have to see what we hear over the next 24 hours.
All right, there's a major development on the quarterback board, so we'll talk QB dominoes as Michigan looks to find their next quarterback. Derek Zammit, he was a target until he committed to Washington over the weekend, so Nathan Bernhardt, Brady Smeagol kind of come into focus now. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, so Zammit kind of took Smeagol's spot at Washington. So that eliminated a competitor for Smeagol. So now you're basically down to Michigan, South Carolina, and UCLA. South Carolina has another quarterback higher on the board. It'll be interesting to see how that situation figures out. Right now, we look at UCLA as probably the biggest competitor to Michigan. I think the Wolverines really moved the needle this weekend. He had a multi-day stay in Ann Arbor. Our secondary reporter, Ethan McDowell, had a great conversation with Smeagol over at thewolverine.com. So I think that Michigan checks a lot of boxes for Smeagol. I think the drawback for him would be having to come in after Bryce Underwood. It's going to be tough to lure a quarterback who wants to get on the field to come in after Underwood, knowing you're going to have to sit for a while since Bryce is a true freshman. So right now, would I say Michigan is the team to beat for Brady Smeagol? Maybe. I mean, I would probably slightly lean that way. And you saw our Steve Wilfong put in a prediction for him at 40%. So that's probably around the same feeling I have. I'm just kind of abstaining from putting in a prediction in general. I didn't put one in for Nathan Bernhardt either. I kind of wanted to see how this situation played out. And I really do think it's 50-50. Michigan could land either quarterback. On the flip side of the coin with Nathan Bernhardt, he's not as highly touted as Smeagol, at least from a recruiting rankings perspective. So, I think there's less pressure for him to say, hey, I want to play right away or something of that nature. I think he would be a little more comfortable sitting behind Underwood and developing because he does know he has some things to work on. I think you can make the argument either way. With Smeagol, you're getting a guy who's extremely productive at the high school level, a son of a coach, really high IQ, high floor kid, just tall pocket passer, not a lot of ceiling, but kind of a safety net. On the flip side of the coin, Nathan Bernhardt, big, tall kid, 6'6", rushed for 1,000 yards, even at that height, which is impressive. Great athlete who could transition to tight end or defensive end, but at quarterback brings a lot of valuable tools as well, but is a project. So on one side, you have a high upside guy. On the other side, you have a high floor guy. Which do you want? Do you want a guy to develop behind Bryce Underwood, or do you want a viable option? Because we know, as we talked about in the portal segment, Michigan lacks depth in the quarterback room.
All right. Last question I got for you coming out of the spring weekend. Last year at this time, quarterback Bryce Underwood was a rock-solid commitment to LSU. Now, fast forward 1 year, he's the face of Michigan football. What was the recruit reaction to seeing Bryce Underwood out there in the spring game? This year's spring transfer portal window is sponsored by Teamworks Intelligence, and their mission is simple. More hits, fewer misses, and player evaluation. In the transfer portal era, data-driven recruiting isn't just an advantage, it's essential. And Teamworks Intelligence empowers your program to navigate the transfer portal with precision while simultaneously elevating your game planning and self-scouting capabilities. The same advanced analytics platform trusted by NFL teams to make multi-million-dollar personnel decisions is now available to elevate your college program's evaluation process. For athletic directors, general managers, and coaching staffs, Teamwork Intelligence delivers game-changing efficiency by streamlining the evaluation process. Instead of spending countless hours reviewing film, traveling to scout prospects, your team can assess more players with greater accuracy in even less time. This means maximizing recruiting efforts within the new budget constraints, giving you the competitive edge needed to build championship caliber programs. Don't just survive the portal era, dominate it with Teamwork's Intelligence, the new standard in player evaluation.
Yeah, and not just the spring game, the entire spring. I mean, Michigan has had visitors come in and everybody's talked about Bryce Underwood. Recruits and parents, especially parents of recruits on the offensive side of the ball, have all talked about just how different the offense looks, what Michigan can do with a quarterback like Bryce Underwood. A lot of those recruits that Michigan brought in the spring also visited in the fall, and they saw an anemic passing attack, quarterbacks that were not getting the ball downfield, that were struggling. I mean, just to put it bluntly, they were struggling to complete a forward pass. So I think being able to see a talent like Bryce Underwood, not just complete passes, but also being able to push the ball down the field, seeing the arm talent, seeing his size as well, and just how imposing of a figure he is. And then he kind of became a little bit of a larger than life personality, even though he wasn't super vocal during the cycle and, all the NIL reports and everything like that. There was still so much social media buzz around him that, recruits just know who he is. They kind of followed the saga last cycle, and that was such a massive flip. Mm-hmm. So when you look at, big wide receiver targets, like Travis Johnson, on 300 wide receiver out of Virginia. I talked to him and his mom after their spring visit, and both of them just had nothing but, great things to say about Bryce Underwood and what Travis could potentially do in the offense with him. It opens the door for even tight ends. Michigan obviously has had a lot of success with tight end production, but they want to have a capable quarterback as well. And so Michigan has the lead on the On3 recruiting prediction machine for on 300 tight end Matt Ludwig out of Montana, who's, right at the top of that tight end board. So he was very impressed with Bryce Underwood. And he even catches the attention of guys in general. Obviously, some of the big offensive guys are really impressed with Underwood, but even the defensive guys, just like I said, from a general recruiting perspective, Bryce Underwood has generated so much buzz on the trail for Michigan. And he's been such a valuable tool. I mean, every visit weekend, he's been taking photos with recruits, talking to recruits, helping Michigan recruit. So he's definitely been a fantastic addition, not just on the field, but as a recruiting tool on the trail as well.
All right, Michigan fans, big weekend, not only at the high school level, but transfer portal as well. How are you guys feeling coming out of the spring game? Let us know. Let's talk a little USC recruiting. Scott Schrader here from We Are SC. There's a 5-star on campus this weekend, but first, you put in a new prediction for a major target for USC. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it was one of those predictions that we probably could have made earlier than we did now, but typically I like to wait until I know that there's going to be some type of an announcement date that's been set, or there's something that's coming in the near future. But yeah, linebacker Talanoa Ely from Kahuku High School on Oahu. He's a guy, I can't think of a linebacker other than Tyler Atkinson, and their chances of USC's chances of getting him are probably pretty low right now. But I think this is probably the highest you can go up on the recruiting board at linebacker for USC, and They're in a really good spot for him right now. He'll be coming back for another visit, I'm told, for June 17th through the 19th, and he'll be visiting with a bunch of other high-profile guys like Brandon Arrington, Mark Bowman, Kenyai Pepe, Tom Tapui, and I think there might be another one that's in there too. So yeah, it was that. This is a big get for USC should they get him. And Steve Wilfong also put a prediction in for him.
Speaking of predictions, how close are you to putting in a prediction for 6'5", 295-pound offensive lineman Samuel Utu? He's right there at Orange Lutheran. Is he a guy that you're close to predicting for USC?
Yeah, he is. He's There was a time where I thought a commitment from him was kind of imminent. I thought it was going to happen at any moment. This is like even as far back as a month ago. But he's decided he's going to take all of his official visits first and then make a decision after that. And you know how things change. This could change
Yeah.
tomorrow for all we know. But yeah, he's definitely something that I would feel pretty confident putting a USC prediction in for right now.
All right, USC fans, we're going to talk about that 5-star on campus. But first, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. All right, let's talk about quarterback Ryder Lyons. He was back on campus at USC. That was on Thursday. But are you getting the sense now that USC is the team to beat for Ryder Lyons? Inside Scoop listeners, I got to tell you about a company that makes this show possible. It's Rhoback Activewear. The only way to describe Rhoback is best fit, best feel. And for those who are not familiar with Rhoback, they are completely changing the game with their incredibly comfortable activewear. Rhoback has released so many items within their new licensed game day collection, and it's our favorite. With novel polo designs, clean hoodie, and quarter zip designs from some of your favorite schools, it's definitely worth checking out. Nobody else in the market is pairing these level of custom designs with this quality of activewear. Rhoback's everyday shorts or their Delta Performance pants are the perfect pairing as well. They are both super comfortable. They have an elastic waistband and a great fabric that is made to have the appearance of a nice short look, but the comfort for everyday movement. Rhoback also has been proudly leading the NIL charge, having signed partnerships with multiple college football stars, past and present, and are becoming the go-to brand for college athletes across the country. So use code JOSH on Rhoback.com for a generous 20% off all new custom orders through the end of this week. Let's spell it out for you. RHOBACK.com. That's 20% off all performance polos, shorts, and more with promo code JOSH.
I know that the sense out here is that they're in a really good spot for him, and just based off the feedback that I've gotten from multiple people, I do think that USC is still the school to beat for him. You know, part of the recruiting Ryder Lyons is that's helping USC is his brother, tight end,
Sure.
sophomore tight end Walker Lyons is really happy at USC. Loves the coaching staff, loves the vibe of the program. He's getting paid well, I'm told. So there's really not a whole lot of negativity that other programs might be able to come back and kind of put on USC with the negative recruiting aspect. So there's a long way to go. There's a lot of visits to take. I think that ultimately there could be something to his brother. At least having a kind of a breakout year this season for USC that might lock things up. But right now, I would expect USC to be in a really strong spot to get him when decision time comes.
All right. Now, let's talk about another 5-star recruit. He wasn't on campus this weekend, but you went to go see 5-star athlete Brandon Arrington. What's your read right now? You got to talk to him one-on-one. How do you feel? What team is out front of this recruitment?
I think USC is out in front right now for him as well. There's going to be people watching this going, is there anybody that you don't think USC is out in front for? But I mean, this is a shared opinion by a lot of people right now. I mean, you could ask Steve Wilfong right now, and he'd probably say something similar about where USC stands with him. But I think that, he was a guy 3 months ago. It was like pulling teeth to get him on campus, and he still hasn't visited a bunch of times since then. He's only visited twice, and he'll be back again here in the somewhat near future. But I think the last visit he had on March 25th was really, really impactful, and kind of put USC in the position I believe they're in right now.
Yeah, feels like it. All right, let's talk about 2 wide receivers. It was a busy week on campus. You guys did a great job of covering everything at We Are SC, but there's 2 wide receivers I want to talk about. Calvin Russell, James Scott, both feel like priority targets. They're both on campus this week. How do you think USC did with them?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about Calvin Russell and how that visit went. I've hit him up a few different ways and haven't got any replies. I think that might be kind of normal with him. But James Scott is an interesting also target for USC's. I don't know what his height is offhand. I went and saw him when he played OT7 in Texas a few weeks back. He's probably 6'4", 6'5", so he's that bigger receiver. It looked really, really good. And this was his first visit to USC. I have not got any feedback from him on how that visit went But he is also already scheduled for a June 20th through the 22nd official visit for USC. So this might be a guy definitely to look out for in the future. And with Calvin Russell, I'm not really sure where things are.
All right, let's wrap it up with one of USC's top priorities on the defensive line, Derek Coleman-Brusa. He was on campus. Do you think that USC has a shot here?
Yeah, I do. I think they have a shot. This is another guy that they put a lot of effort into.
Yeah.
I don't know what the maximum number of visits that these coaches are allowed to get in the wintertime, but USC definitely used them on him. He was at Kennedy Catholic. I think, just based off feedback I've gotten from people that know his family really well, I think prior to him getting out to USC for this first visit, I think Oregon was kind of felt to be the leader right now. So I'm not sure whether, this one visit has changed anything there, but I do expect him to come back for an official visit in June.
All right. Busy time for USC as they battle for the #1 class in America. Trojan fans, talk to us. How are you feeling about some of the names we hit on? Who does USC land? Let us know. Let's talk a little Georgia Bulldog football, and today we are breaking it down with On3's Cody Blair, national scout. I want to know one 5-star on this football roster that's about to break out and one 3-star, former 3-star, that you think is going to outplay that ranking this season.
Yeah, Josh, I think the former 5-star that has to make an impact this year for Georgia is actually a player that we got to see on the field in the postseason last year, and that's offensive tackle Monroe Freeling. And look, Josh, I'm not going to sugarcoat this one. He's got his bell rung at the end of last year. Arguably his 2 worst games of the season came against Texas in the SEC championship and against Notre Dame in the playoffs. Plus, you have him missing the spring with a labrum surgery that should be recovered by the fall. But here's the deal here. This is put up or shut up time if you're Monroe Freeling, because whether or not it's fair for him, the Bulldogs are trotting out a new QB this year. You're bringing in new weapons at receiver. Trevor Etienne is gone. And yes, I really like Nate Frazier, but you have a lot of players on offense who lack experience. So you have to be the anchor of this offense. You have to be the guy that sets the tone for this offense, and you have to develop faster than maybe you want to or think you should be given the time to, and it has to happen right now. Hopefully, last year was a baptism by fire, and he's ready to go once the injury heals. But in order for this Georgia offense to thrive with all these new pieces, the left tackle has to be a brick wall.
All right, now let's talk about a former 3-star recruit that you think is ready to outplay that ranking this season for the Dogs.
Yeah, this one was tough, Josh, because frankly, Georgia does not sign a ton of 3-star prospects, but they did land a former 3-star in the portal last season in wide receiver London Humphreys, who came over from Vandy last year and had a solid role in the offense. Fast forward to now, and your 2 leading receivers from last year are on to the NFL. Dominic Lovett, gone. Arian Smith, gone. And yes, they bring in Noah Thomas. Yes, they bring in Zachariah Branch. But you had some clutch moments in 2024, and you know the playbook more than these new cats at this point. So to me, especially early in the season, there will be moments where London Humphreys will be asked to do more than he has in the past. And it will be up to him if he will rise to the occasion and take advantage of those opportunities, or will he let one of these newcomers come in and take his role in the offense?
Dog fans, what are we thinking? Who are you most excited about? Who's your breakout player for 2025? Let us know in the comment section below.